Okay, anyway, since we have a limited time here, I would like to start the second part of our session today. I'm very sorry that I was unable to join you in the first part since I had classes here at the academy and they've just finished. My name is Alexander Chekhov and I already see some familiar faces, for example, Donika or Yelizaveta, which are my students. I'm a research fellow at the Center for Advanced International Studies at MGIMO University, and I also lecture here at Ranepa. I specialize mainly on the issues of international security, and in particular, it will be the issues of arms control, non-proliferation, and the international security in the Baltic region. And I see that in our pipeline, we have some very interesting reports which are actually quite relevant to my expertise, for example, about the military political strategy of the People's Republic of China, or for horizontal nuclear proliferation, as well as the number of other reports which I might not be that familiar with, but I hope that the experts who are present here will help me with. Okay, so let's go on. And Donika, please start with your report, which will be, as I understand, about the, which will be about the shocking Brexit effects and other disintegration processes in the European Union.
Exactly. First, I would like to thank all our specialists on this conference for the opportunity to be here. I would like to start with a few words that we are living in a very dynamic and extremely fast-changing world. We know that we are facing great challenges and local issues are becoming a global one. On this point of view, I would like to start my presentation, which topic is the shocking Brexit and the other disintegration processes. Next slide, please. Well, let me start with what the European Union is. The European Union is well known as the longest and most advanced political and economic organization. It is an international collaboration among independent countries and an effort to sovereignty, common policies for all members. The most important accomplishments being the EU's member are single market, European single currency, common policies in different spheres such as economy, education, energy security, migration, and also cross-border cooperation of the Schengen area. However, throughout the last 2 decades, the European Union has dealt with a seemingly never-ending stringing of crises, and the most critical one is recognized as Brexit. The choice of the United Kingdom to leave the European Union after almost 40 years of membership, along with the increase of nationalist and also Eurosceptic movements across of the Union, contributed to the spread of unexpected wave of disintegration processes in European Union. Moreover, the Brexit referendum provokes speculations about likelihood of European disintegration and established a social economic crisis in Europe. So now we can move to the next slide, where we will have more information about who will follow the British example. The differences between the EU and its member states became obvious, mainly in the framework of political and economic issues. Brexit was just the beginning of systematic chaos that caused many questions to arise regarding the status of the members in the EU. Hypothetically, if we need to suggest who may follow the British example, actually, we can stand that Italy would be the most likely the next consider exiting of the European Union. On the other hand, France and Spain both showed moderate support for changing its relationship status with the Union, while Germany was the member state least likely of four major players to consider leaving the Union. In addition, the relationship between the Union and EU members from the Nordic region has always been seen as highly contagious due to nationalistic and disintegration processes influencing all of these states. We can continue with the next slide. So further, we will have some information about other crises which provoked more disintegration processes among the EU. Before the Brexit referendum, disintegration theories did not offer much room for discussions inside the European Union institutions and among scholars or specialists in European Union at all. For then on, it seems that disintegration approaches have gained ground, intending to account for these unprecedented processes. Also, it can be seen clearly that the disintegration processes in European Union had been effect for a long time before the Brexit referendum. The failure to ratify the European Constitutional Treaty in France and Netherlands is a clear example. Another example is the Eurozone economic debt crisis, which affected members of Eurozone countries, such as Greece, Ireland, also Portugal, Cyprus, but also Spain and Italy, which are most central ones. Another spectacular problem in the EU was the Syrian refugee crisis that provoked a wave of mistrust and Euroscepticism, mostly in the big four member states, except Germany. Another crucial moment was the last European Union crisis, which was connected with the danger of the COVID pandemic, causing a tremendous fear that provokes the closure of borders inside the European Union. With no doubt, this fact can be interpreted as a triumph of national over international, becoming the greatest enemy of the EU integration policy. Furthermore, all of the up-mentioned critical moments are direct demonstration of disintegration among the European Union members, which prefer to protect their nationalist interests and set the stage for the end of the European integration process. Another important proof of disintegration tendencies in European Union is the fact that recently, nationalist and Eurosceptic political parties have won seats in parliament during the last elections in many European states. For example, France, Belgium, Italy, Denmark, Austria, Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria. As a reflection of this nationalist tendency, separatist movements are reviving in Europe and are putting a serious dent in the EU's popularity and prospects for longevity. So we can move to the next slide now, where we can see which are the most likely scenarios forecasting the future of the European Union after Brexit. We have three scenarios mainly. So the first one is connected with the structural reform of the EU, which will prevent future separation. Also, we need the creation of the economic and monetary union by a smaller group of member states with exclusion of non-Eurozone members and even some members of the Eurozone. In the other words, we need a formation of a two-tier Europe. Also, fully reforming of the existing governing EU structures. The second one, the second scenario is that the European Union will continue to exist in its current form. And actually, Brexit example will be considered as a special case that will not invoke any further disintegration processes. Accordingly to that theory, the current crisis is believed to be just a bad period for the European Union and will pass soon. And the third scenario is that the disintegration process will continue its path, and more EU members will follow United Kingdom's decision and will leave the Union. Thus, it may lead to full disintegration of the European Union. So now I'm open to hear all your questions and answer them. So please. Yeah.
Julian, have a question.
I may. An interesting presentation, but I would make a few points here, which I'd be happy to hear your responses to. First of all, the nationalist and populist parties do not have, with the exception possibly of Hungary, but not even in Poland, a sufficiently large base to pull off a withdrawal. They are, for the most part, minority parties. The lesson of Brexit is that if you're going to have a referendum, it shouldn't be winner take all with 50% plus one vote. That's not going to repeat itself. That was a miscalculation because the organizers of Brexit and the Conservative Party miscalculated. Their intention was not to have Brexit, but rather to satisfy the populace so that they could get on with European integration. And it backfired terribly. So my view is that model is not repeatable. So I would posit that if you're going to have a two-tiered, if there's an attempt to make a two-tiered EU, you already to some extent have it through the existence of Schengen and the Eurozone. I don't foresee any more thorough division of the EU that would be acceptable to the second-class states. I don't, see it going beyond that. Rather, there will eventually have to be a realization, if the euro is to continue, that the doubters, who are essentially populist speculators, such as here in the Czech Republic, will finally be replaced by more realistic, open-minded politicians. So I'd like to hear your responses to that.
Well, actually, I truly believe that the Brexit example is just a special case. But I would like, my idea was just to present that there are other options as well. As for the two-tiered Europe, yeah, we can see such a case right now. But actually, European Union is making its best to change this. About the you have mentioned that actually this kind of separation will be continue, but I'm not how to explain it. I do not agree this point. I do not share this point because the integration process is the seed of the European Union. And if we have the two-tiered Europe, that means that we don't have a European Union. Many countries, such as Bulgaria, for example, are now trying to get in Schengen. So Schengen is going to expand. And all of the countries which are part of the European Union will be part of Schengen. So this is my point of view. But as I've already mentioned, we have three scenarios, and I just wanted to present them to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
A very good point. Thanks. Though, of course, I would point out that both Bulgaria and Romania have been due to join Schengen for some time, but simply don't qualify. Haven't qualified. I don't know if I don't think there's a fixed. It's still not a fixed date.
Yeah, there's no fixed date.
Yeah, exactly. So
actually,
given Borisov's leadership and style of governance, that entry into Schengen is likely to be continue to be put off for some time, and ditto, I assume, for Romania.
Yeah, but for example, in Bulgaria, there's a concrete date in entrance of Bulgaria in the Eurozone. So we can see that there's some progress in that space.
Okay, thank you, Donika. If I may, I would like also to ask a small question. Can you please elaborate a little bit more on Bulgarian stance in the EU? How Bulgaria, because as I see, you are from Bulgaria, yes?
Yeah.
How Bulgaria view the future of the European Union? How Bulgaria view the future of its own role within the European Union?
Actually, Bulgaria is Europhilic country. We see European Union as something really positive because thanks to the European Union, we have a great progress here. The common market gave us great opportunities, and our economy is on our edge. So actually, we truly believe that the European Union and the integration inside the European Union will continue. And of course, we are facing hard times right now, but our cooperation is never ending. So I can see that our governing parties all of them are seeing that European Union will continue its existence, and we are seeing ourselves as a part of the European Union.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody have any additional questions for Donika or comments maybe? Okay, then thank you so much for your report, and we are going to the next speaker, which according to the schedule is Alina Akchurina,
yes,
who will tell us about the systematic crisis of the international organizations. And before you start a presentation, if I may, can I ask all of the participants to turn on their cameras, because it's really not so comfortable when you are speaking to the dark things on your screen. That would be really great if we can see your faces, not only your names here. So please, all who have the cameras, please turn them on. Okay, Alina, thank you so much, and you can start your presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, dear colleagues and experts. My name is Alina, and I'd like to start. The topic of my presentation you may see on screen. So, the COVID-19 revealed the UN failure to bring countries together to defeat it. One of the direct impacts of the pandemic is how it has challenged international organizations, particularly the United Nations and specialized agencies like the WHO. Of course, the pandemic is one of the most challenging crises since the organization's founding after the Second World War. But the extent of international and regional cooperation has remained weak, as most countries prefer to opt for unilateral strategies. The pandemic has led many countries to put self-interest first. Such approach triggers a concern about whether countries will retreat into unilateral actions and move away from multilateral approach that has long been a key variable in facilitating cooperation between countries in the post-COVID-19. For a fact, we need collective action more than ever. There is dangerous tendency within global organizations. They usually respond to global crises too slowly without enduring strategy. And the recent situation with the coronavirus showed the lack of coordination in the United Nations to battle the pandemic. It seems that the organization was unable to function effectively in the face of global health crisis. What's more, this crisis has also shown that neither China nor the United States is ready and able to lead the UN system. Ambassadors from Ghana, Indonesia, Liechtenstein, Norway, Singapore, and Switzerland, they presented a resolution that was adopted by consensus. It was largely symbolic, but sponsoring diplomats said that they hoped it would increase pressure on the Security Council to act. Speaking about the World Health Organization and the United States, former American President Donald Trump renounced UN-backed agreements, which were Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal. He also wanted to withdraw the country from the World Health Organization. As the blame game over COVID-19 continues to heat up globally, the WHO has been at the forefront of the debate, given its frontline role in coordinating the fight against the outbreak. Of course, the potential withdrawal from the organization could have called into question financial viability of the WHO, but fortunately, President Joe Biden walked back the former administration's plan to withdraw the country from the World Health Organization. What's more, most of the experts say that the World Health Organization, that was severely criticized for its initial response to the Ebola crisis, was far more diligent in assessing the coronavirus threat. In order to deal with global challenges, countries should develop international cooperation in a sustainable way with the help of international organizations like the United Nations. And these global organizations, well, they should guarantee that all countries use a human rights-based approach to apply the emergency, rightful, and strategic health arrangements to battle against the coronavirus pandemic. But in order to improve the mechanism of battling against global threats, the United Nations needs to be reformed. So now I'd like to mention several reasons why the UN fails to manage problems. Firstly, the current membership of the Security Council unchanged since the Second World War. There is also another problem in Security Councils that should be solved: arguments about the right to veto. Any member of the Permanent Five, or the P5 for short, can veto any measure, and each has regularly used this power in order to protect either itself or allies. For example, since 90s, the United States has cast a veto on Council resolutions 16 times, mainly concerning Israeli-Palestinian relations. Russia has done so 17 times, including 8 times over Syria. The next problem is that the international crisis management regarding the pandemic has led to the emergence of new actors in international law, which now plays more prominent role globally and in multi-actor and multi-level governance in the world. The role of the United Nations has been disappointing amid the coronavirus crisis, and its inability to respond quickly shows that the United Nations faced a problem of allowing the strong actors to act solely without public control. Some experts also say that direct election of the Secretary General should be also implemented in the system. What's more, the UN should become more democratic, and its activities in the areas of peacekeeping, humanitarian relief, and human rights should also be improved. The next problem is functional problems, because the UN is capable of dealing with global threats and challenges, but it fails to achieve its objectives and purposes as defined in the Charter. In 1948, the UN proclaimed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It details individuals' basic rights and freedoms, but there are still rights that remain unrealized. For example, the rights expressed to education, to nationality, and to equal pay. The UN main aim is to maintain international peace, but in the face of major crises, the organization usually becomes powerless. Just recently, efforts have been underway by Tunisia, one of the 10 non-permanent Security Council members, to draft a resolution that would, without assigning blame for the virus, support Mr. Guterres' appeal for a global ceasefire and describes the pandemic as a threat to humanity and to international peace and security. It remains unclear, however, when or even whether the draft in its current form would be put to a vote by the Council. To sum up, these problems have left the United Nations rather helpless in its struggles to find the right response to the global crisis. At the same time, I'd like to mention that countries failed to unite in combating COVID-19, not only because the United Nations was unable to find a right response to the pandemic, but also because there are political differences between two major actors, China and the United States. And there are challenges which can only be overcome when the world works together. Of course, the institutions we built following the Second World War, these institutions are struggling to adapt to the pandemic era. But it's obvious that the United Nations can function effectively only when its members are united. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you for your presentation, Alina. Jorin, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Fascinating, Alina, thank you. A very, very interesting, fascinating presentation. Given what you've said, realistically, can you foresee the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, the P5, under any circumstances, foreseeable circumstances, giving up their exclusive rights to have the Security Council as what one Russian ambassador in Belgrade referred to a few years ago as our playground, and sharing it with Nigeria, Germany, Japan? Or is this just a pipe dream?
Well, to be honest, I think that the P5 won't do so because, well, for them, the right to veto is an instrument which allows them to protect either itself or allies. So I think that in the near future, they won't do so. Well, I think that the right to veto, arguments about the right to veto, there are a lot of arguments about this right, and this problem should be solved. But as I said, in the near future, the P5 won't give up this right.
If I can just quickly add, yeah, I mean, precisely. Where there's a will, there's a way. There is no will. These 5 countries have a very privileged position, and I just don't see them backing off. Of course, I would also make the point that there is some sort of a committee within the United Nations on the reform of the Security Council. But given who, I don't know who's chairing it at the moment, but for several terms it was headed by my former boss in Kosovo, who's a citizen of Afghanistan. If you make an Afghan head of a UN body to reform the UN, no dispersion on Afghanistan, this is just going to be a debate club.
Yeah, from this point of view, yeah, I agree with you.
We also have a question from the chat box, and somebody called Hasret Balcioglu, I think it's our Turkish colleague, yes, he asks, can a trust be established between China and the United States?
Oh,
I don't think that it's actually that much related to your presentation, but maybe if you can give a brief comment on it. Yes, so because the issue of the trust building, I think, is one of the main problems in the United Nations right now, that the nations basically, including in the Security Council, they don't trust each other. They are engaged in a so-called great power competition, and this competition, it paralyzes the activities of the United Nations and restricts them. So maybe there is a way that the trust can be established between the great powers, which will help them to overcome such a deadlock which they have right now.
Well, I think that it was a difficult question, but maybe the main reason why countries fail to, maybe the key reasons why there are ups and downs in this complex relationship is because there is such thing as contradictory of expectations. And I think that in the near future, countries, the United States, and the lack of real trust between the United States and China will exist. And now it's very difficult to name instruments which can help countries to establish the trust.
Thank you so much. I hear actually that somebody have a noise on his background, so if you can mute it, it will be really great. Okay. Any additional questions for Alina on her presentation? Okay, then thank you for your presentation, Alina, and I would like to give a floor. We are actually going for a very big subsection about China, because we have 4 speeches, 4 presentations on China-India relations, on military political strategy of China, on the role of Chinese diaspora. And the first one, according to my list, is about the influence of People's Republic of China in the Indian Ocean region in the context of the implementation of the strategy of the Maritime Silk Road in the 21st century. And the speaker is Anastasia Voropaeva. Anastasia, are you with us? Are you ready?
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction.
Here you go.
So can you show the next slide? Thank you. So the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road Initiative was launched in 2013 by Xi Jinping. And this initiative is a project of a strategic partnership. And in the opinion of China, it's a mutually beneficial cooperation based on the common historical and cultural past of the countries of the Indian Ocean region. So this project under consideration is an important direction of Chinese foreign policy, since the successful implementation of it will allow the country to strengthen its own position in Europe, Africa, Asia, and as well as ensure economic security. Next slide, please. Thanks. Nevertheless, China is not the only state with strategic interests in this region. Moreover, the Indian Ocean region is currently the center of geopolitical confrontation between states such as United States, Great Britain, China, Australia, India, and Japan. Next slide. The action plan for the implementation of this initiative is reflected not only in official national and interstate documents, but also in existing projects, the purpose of which is to prepare the necessary basis for the successful implementation of the strategy in the near future. And at the moment, the implementation of maritime initiative is one of the main vectors of Chinese foreign policy. So the implementation of it meets the main interests of China that you can see on the slide. China seeks to present this project as beneficial and inclusive, which is important stage in achieving the sustainable development goals, the transition to a blue economy, and in the formation of a society of common destiny. It's important to mention that China pursues the following geopolitical interests reflected in the concepts of the country's foreign policy, such as principles of peaceful coexistence, the concept of Chinese dream, Greater China, and harmonious world. This strategy doesn't imply the use of aggressive methods of influence. Nevertheless, the tendency of China's increasing military and economic presence in the Pacific region has led to the emergence of fears from the world community about the nature of the state's foreign policy. Next slide, please. And one of the manifestations of which is strength of peril strategy, which was formulated by American researchers, which assumes that Chinese policy is aimed at promoting the construction of strong points, ports, of Chinese geopolitical influence and strengthening the military presence in the Indian Ocean region. And despite the fact that China officially denies the existence of this strategy, at this moment, China demonstrates the ability to establish strategically important relations with countries that, on the one hand, really need China's financial assistance, and on the other hand, they are strong points following the route of maritime initiative. So to sum up, at this stage, the influence of China in the Indian Ocean region in context of implementation of this maritime initiative is rather difficult to assess, especially due to the insufficient development of this topic, as well as due to the different interpretations of the Chinese policy. So nevertheless, the increase in the economic and military potential of China was a catalyst for the increase in the state's influence in the region of strategic importance, which of course is the Indian Ocean region. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Anastasia. And if I may, I have a small question for your presentation. Actually, that's a very interesting thing, how China is trying to connect the greater Eurasia around it by building the transportation corridors for its goods to Europe or to other regions. First of all, what do you think should be the attitude of the key regional states to this process? For example, the Pakistan, the Maldives, the Sri Lanka. Are they becoming increasingly afraid about the Chinese influence in the region? Or maybe they are interested in Chinese investments and they are more interested in strategic partnership with China than are afraid about the possible growing Chinese influence?
Thank you for your question. So according to official information, government of Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Maldives, they completely agree with Chinese policy, and they are interested in Chinese financial side of this project. Because of this, in these particular countries, there are ports for the implementation of the maritime initiatives. So government of this country agree with it, and they need this product.
Okay, thank you. We also have the other question from the chat box, which from our listener, once again, Hasret Balcioglu. He asks, if China wants to regenerate the Silk Road, from which country it can initiate it in the best way? I actually think that this is, I can take this question because I think that it's quite obvious that if China will be regenerating the Silk Road, it will go on from China, because China is producing the goods on its soil and will be exporting them to Europe, to Russia, to United States, and so on. Jorin, you had some comment or question? Yes?
In the case of those African countries, Tanzania and others, where China is engaged in railway construction, port construction, how do you foresee developments if and when different governments take office and find a country that is deeply in debt, bound for years, decades to come, to Chinese interests? How do they extract themselves? Do they have an exit clause in whatever contracts, or are these contracts under lock and key and top secret?
Thank you for your question. I'm not pretty sure answering this question because I didn't make research in Africa, so Chinese policy in Africa. So as I know, states with which Chinese government made an agreement, they like Djibouti or others. So the Chinese, they really need this help, and not this help, but the finance of China. And because China sends to this country a lot of specialists, especially a lot of money, and builds their military port. So I cannot assess the influence there. I cannot answer this question completely about the reaction of African countries, but I think on the one hand, it can be very useful for these countries at this stage, first of all.
Thank you, Anastasia. And if I may, I would like to ask one more question. From your point of view, what do you think if the Chinese, this Silk Way strategy and Silk Way policy, if it actually for the global international society, is it rather a good thing that Chinese just basically issuing a new Marshall Plan, for example, which will be able to, they provide economic assistance and infrastructure assistance for the states which are involved in this strategy? Or is it rather an issue of concern for other great powers like United States or Russia, because in future they will find more and more states falling in the dependency from China, and the China will be more able to influence their policy and exert their regional influence? So should we encourage this strategy? Should we see this as some sort of a good thing, or either we should view it with caution, yes, and think that it is some sort of a double game on behalf of Chinese?
Thank you. In my opinion, we should be cautious, because first of all, every step in this initiative, of course, is only for China, not for like building the community of common destiny or something like that. Because as I read a lot of Chinese official documents, I could see that the main topic in each of them is just to protect the position of China in world. In the world, and especially if we talk about Indian Ocean region. Of course, it's not only to build infrastructure for these countries, not to help people generally. So first of all, it's just to secure its ports, to secure this commercial roads, and so on. I can hear you.
Yes, okay, thank you. Any more questions for Anastasia? Okay, no more questions. Anastasia, thank you so much for your presentation. And let's give a floor to one more Anastasia, Anastasia Kuznetsova, who will be presenting the report on the role of Chinese diaspora in the formation of Great China in the period from the late 1970s until today. Anastasia, the floor is yours.
Thank you for introduction, and I would like to start, please. Next slide. So the successful implementation of the reforms in China in 1917 allowed the state at the beginning of the 21st century to become not only the first economy on the world, but also in terms of purchasing power parity and the largest producer, exporter, and holder of foreign exchange reserves. Representatives of the Chinese diaspora made a significant contribution to the implementation of reforms. And as we know, the Chinese diaspora is the largest in the world, and its representatives live in almost all countries. And according to the data for 2019, the total number of representatives of the Chinese diaspora around the world is about 47 million. And more detailed information about the region of residence of the Chinese diaspora is presented in a slide.
Yeah. Excuse me, if I may just ask you a small question on your presentation. Do you mean the people who have a Chinese citizenship, or do you mean the people of Chinese who have some sort of a Chinese?
That people who have Chinese roots, not only citizenship.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
So China has long pursued a policy of interaction with overseas Chinese, but during the reign of Mao Zedong, the political course of China strongly hindered the diaspora of relation between Beijing and Chinese diaspora. Openness reforms have had a significant impact of the formation of relations between China and the representatives of the diaspora, and this transformation led to the fact that overseas Chinese began to be considered as an integral part of China. In recent years, the main goals of the China's activities in relation to the Chinese diaspora were stimulating the Chinese diaspora to invest in the state economy and to participate in trade with China, as well as to return Chinese specialists who are aboard to their homeland. So next slide, please. The overseas Chinese diaspora played a huge role in the economic recovery of China because its investments as well as scientific and managerial potential contributed to the development of private corporation in China. Also, this became possible thanks to the implementation by China's government of competent policy aimed at attracting foreign investment, creation a legal framework, and special economic zones. Please, next slide. The largest number of representatives of the Chinese diaspora live in Southeast Asia region, and according to various statistics, the size of the Chinese diaspora living in this region is about 70 to 80% of all overseas Chinese. Despite the fact that the number of Chinese in comparison with the indigenous population of the host states is relatively small, but the representatives of the diaspora have significant economic power and influence in the region. In a view of the deterioration of relations between China and the United States, China needs to search new markets, and China considers the ASEAN countries as the most important economic partner. In 2020, a free trade zone was founded between China, the ASEAN states, and also with some states in the region, for example, Japan. This free trade zone opens up vast opportunities for investment cooperation, economic interaction, and private exchange between China and the ASEAN countries. And also the establishment of that zone is inseparable from the active participation of bilateral enterprises and the investment of Chinese commercial companies. The capital invested by representatives of the Chinese diaspora, the introduction of innovative foreign technologies, and the management experience have played an important role in integrating China in regional economic relations. So next slide. And with the coming to power of Xi Jinping, the policy of interaction with the Chinese diaspora received a new impetus. Representatives of the diaspora begin seen as the channel of promoting some political interests of China abroad. And the main directions of support of the foreign policy of the party by representatives of the diaspora are follows. It's a formation of a positive image of the One Belt and One Road initiative, promotion of Chinese companies, and opposition to protests in Hong Kong, and so on. Please, next slide. And representatives of the Chinese diaspora are a force capable of promoting the interests of China. For example, in the Southeast Asia region, this is facilitated by the economic power of the diaspora, which makes it possible to support the political campaigns of various statesmen and parties. Also, in many states, representatives of the diaspora work closely with Chinese organizations controlled by Communist Party of China. The situation of representatives of the diaspora abroad is complicated by the spread of stereotypes, but also the situation is complicated by the spread of the stereotype of the Chinese street, and it has intensified against the backdrop of the coronavirus infection and the trade war policy with the United States. Also, the crackdown on protests in Hong Kong. The epidemic has had a strong negative impact in China's image, and attitudes towards Chinese migration have changed in many countries, and most of all in European countries, because the question arose of the rationality of the location of production on the territory of China, and the feasibility of joint infrastructure projects. So that's it.
Thank you, Anastasia. So any questions for Anastasia? Jolin, here you go. Yes, I will ask my question after you.
So, do you foresee just a further consolidation of Chinese power in the coming years? To the point that, with what point? I mean, the resistance, opposition in the international community does not seem to be waning. It's not just the Americans, and I don't think it's just the EU. But the problems of Xinjiang, Tibet, China, and Taiwan, which is likely to be the next explosive point, would suggest that Beijing is playing with fire. If it continues along this line, it's walking a tightrope. It's gotten away with far more, perhaps, than one would have expected looking forward 20 or 10 years ago. But we're coming to a point of push coming to shove, whether it's in the China Straits or the South China Sea. How long can Beijing play this game, in your view, before something's snapping domestically?
I think that today the Beijing tries to use the diaspora as a political channel or as a soft power, some kind of the soft power, in order to promote its interests around the world.
But that's a very soft power in most countries. It's an economic element in some countries.
But in South Asia, I think it's also a soft power and an economic power. It depends on the region, because
can you please unmute yourself, Anastasia? You accidentally muted yourself. Can you turn on your mic?
Okay.
Yes.
Could you just repeat what you just said, the last sentence or two, please?
I think in some region, like in Southeast Asia, diaspora plays a role as an economic element and also as a soft power. So they combine it to role. But in some countries, like European countries, I think diaspora have not strong power, and it's not sense to use the diaspora as some channels.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Anastasia, my question will be, as I understand from your presentation, that the Chinese diaspora is quite loyal to the current Chinese government. I mean, they are used, basically, the Chinese government utilized this diaspora as a tool to promote their own foreign policy using the soft power instruments. What is the source of successes of such a Chinese policy? Because, for example, if we look on the Russian diaspora, which is outside Russia, they are not actually really they are not that much ready to engage with Russian official politicians and push the Russian agenda. They are usually actually a huge part of this diaspora is an oppositional to Russian governmental position. Yes. So what is the secret how Chinese made such a diaspora loyal to them and basically as a tool and created a tool of a very important tool of foreign policy?
I think it depends on the mentality of the country. For example, Chinese culture, they are very committed to their country and to their culture, to their homeland, and also this Confucianism contributed to that, and I think it depends on the mentality.
Okay, thank you. But you don't think that there is some type of universal formula of creating a loyal diaspora which should be repeated and studied by, for example, by Russian scholars?
But I think also the government of China, they spend a lot of time and money, and they provide a big work with the Chinese diaspora. Also, they try to include a lot of companies in which Chinese diaspora may take place. So they try to stimulate Chinese diaspora to invest in the country's economy, and it leads to the Chinese diaspora more loyal for the government.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation. Any more questions for Anastasia? Yes, Jolly.
Yeah, I would just note that in the case of the United States and the sizable Chinese community there are divided loyalties between Taiwan and the People's Republic. If you walk through Chinatown, whether in New York or San Francisco, you nowadays see flags of both states flying from non-state building structures. And so there is some sort of, to us, relatively unseen struggle for hearts and minds by the two sides. I would be curious to know whether you see that kind of a struggle between Taipei and Beijing among Chinese diaspora elsewhere in Asia.
It's a very interesting question. Of course, it's difficult to control Chinese diaspora, I think, nevertheless, and it successfully works. And I think it's directly depends on the country. No. So it depends on the country where is diaspora and the interests of the diaspora.
Okay, thank you so much. And let's give the floor to our next speaker, which will be Ekaterina Detzik, and she will tell us about the military political strategy of the People's Republic of China in relation to the South China Sea Zone. In the period
actually, I'm sorry, but my theme is a little bit different. It's like my theme is China on the path of forming global military power, to be honest.
Okay.
So
on your presentation, please.
It should be like here with all others. No. I just thought we had all presentations in one document and I shouldn't open. So yes, so this one. Next one, please. So I'm going to talk about China on the path of forming global military power. And let's talk about the past a little bit. So since the mid-20th century, the People's Liberation Army has been developing along with the economy and wealth of the country. At first, it was just a guerrilla army, which later evolved into a more efficient one, and with the help of the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union provided China with the training and equipment, and it built similar to Russian factories to manufacture weapons on the Chinese territory. However, even with the help of its neighbors, China couldn't compete with the leading powers for a long time. And the situation worsened after the Sino-Soviet split, when the Soviet Union withdrew all the economic and military assistance. And from the Korean War till 1970s, China was under economic and military sanctions imposed from the West. And then China's army was big but badly equipped, consisted mostly of poorly trained light infantry, small number of vehicles, outdated artillery and equipment of naval and air force. There was almost no technology progress during the 50s and 70s. And underdevelopment of the military force was due to the economic downturn and underfunding. Next one, please. Then, what had brought the change? A program of economic liberalization, which started in 1978 and eased tensions with the West, had brought the modernization to the plan. Chinese army got investment and technologies to improve their military force, to bring education to the personnel, and to expand the second artillery force, which has been the most prominent aspect of the modernization. And over the years, China's spending on the defense had grown a lot. In last year, China's military budget was around 1,268 billion yuan, which is approximately $200 billion. And the current spending is believed to be higher due to exclusion of some categories from the announced figure. And with the current plus growing power and capabilities, it's easy to forget what kind of army it was before, and with outdated equipment, poor training, and uneducated personnel. And now Chinese army is becoming stronger, more professional and skilled, and the recent years have seen many improvements in its air and naval forces, missile and space. Next slide, please. So about plan, which is Navy of Chinese army, the equipment of the plan was similarly outdated. It had about 80 attack submarines, some of which may not have been fully serviceable. And over the past few years, the plan's modernization program has contributed to the production of more technologically advanced and flexible naval forces. And this program has emphasized the acquisition of modern diesel-powered submarines, larger, more modern surface vessels, and a variety of anti-ship missiles. And now China owns the largest number of ships in Asia, with more than 60 surface ships, submarines, landing craft, and patrol vessels. And after a long over-reliance on imported ships, China has started to build its own ones with improved capabilities. So on the picture is the current amount of naval equipment of China. And next one, please. Next slide, I mean. And about PLAV, Air Force. Regarding the Air Force, in terms of the number of technical units, Chinese army is in first place in Asia and the third place in the world. And the overall number of aircraft has decreased. However, the number of new combat aircraft, either produced in China or imported from Russia, has risen. And even though PLAV had undergone modernization, still has a great number of old aircraft, almost a half of fighter aircraft, and the proportion of technical equipment is still unbalanced. Some experts point out that China's number of tanker aircraft is insufficient to carry out large-scale operations. And however, China is clearly moving towards becoming a modern air force with its growing influence. It's clearly moving, yes. And based on the rate of renewal of the aircraft fleet, it can be noted that soon most of the aircraft of the Chinese army will be new aircrafts of latest generation. Next one. And about PLASAF, which later was renamed to PLAREF, Rocket Force, while being one of the nuclear weapon states and possessing nuclear weapon, China's nuclear missiles capabilities were low, their arsenal was outdated and rather vulnerable. Therefore, the PLASAF has been improving its nuclear and missile arsenal and later evolved into a much more comprehensive force. And the current number of Chinese nuclear weapons seems doubtful. American experts report about 240 warheads, of which approximately 175 are on duty and 65 are in reserve. And this puts China's nuclear forces in the fourth place in the world, which you can see on the picture. And the next slide, please. So the conclusion, the expansion of Chinese strategic interest and the strengthened position of the PLA, which determines the need to intercept leadership in military rivalry with world leaders, can be noted. And in order to support its position of the great power, China will continue to develop its military force, as evidenced by the increasing military expenditure of the country. And space has become one of the top priorities to China over the past few decades. It is seen as an arena of new intensified military competition by Chinese strategists. And PLA has made a large progress in this area, including launching a range of satellites to support its military operations. And to be sure, the PLA continues to suffer weaknesses in its system of education and training. Some of these are institutional, and these and some other factors make improvements to the overall operational capability a bit slower than it wished to be. And thus, following the history of Chinese military force development, despite some remaining blind spots, for example, education, as it was said before, it's clear that PLA has become a strong, modern, and self-sufficient army with a powerful defense, and it has progressed in improving and modernizing its air, naval, and ground forces, and it's armed with advanced nuclear weapon, munition, and space force, of course. And that's everything I wanted to say. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Thank you, Ekaterina. Any questions or comments?
Sorry, I have one question. Maybe you know, has China some joint ventures with other countries on military issues?
I believe, well, we have some agreements with Russia, well, with our country, and actually our cooperation is quite strong with China, and I can't really recall anything other, to be honest.
Oh, sorry, actually, I didn't meant agreements. I meant some like, working on some fighters, for example. For example, like Russia and India was working on advanced fighter together. So I mean stuff like that.
Well, if I understood right, well, I'm not sure, to be honest. I'm not ready to answer this question. However, I would say that China participates a lot in UN humanitarian missions, if this can be counted quite a lot. So, but I can't really answer that. So I'm sorry about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ekaterina. And I also have a small question for you. You've outlined here the Chinese so-called like military strategy, basically the growth of the Chinese military might. Yes, but in terms of political implication, what do you think China is trying to achieve grow in such sort of might? Is China, does it want to become a global military superpower? Does it want to establish some sort of a global navy, which will be a worldwide force which can be present in every world region? So what the final purpose of this strategy?
So there may be several answers to this question. So first of all, China sees the strengthening of its army as a part of a Chinese dream. So which can be concluded, which can be described as a sufficient, prosperous, and strong nation, which is able to protect its interests, national interests, and its borders. So I would emphasize the word strong here. So of course, China is interested in that. And as you proposed, yes, of course, it wants to become be the leading role in the military sphere to surpass USA and Russia, which are on the first and second, places. Of course, that's their aim as well. And besides that, they want to be more connected with other worlds, with other countries, and with the world itself. So as again, I mentioned humanitarian missions. So for example, they sent a medical team to the Haiti, even though they have no ties. Yes, and again, they are the biggest troop contributor in the UN Security Council, and also they placed on second place regarding financial contribution again to the UN. So yes, they kind of want to strengthen their influence on the world and just be more connected with it. I would say something like this.
Thank you, Ekaterina. So any more questions for Ekaterina? Okay, Ekaterina, thank you for your presentation. And I think that we have a final presentation in the Chinese section of our meeting, which will be delivered by Ayjan Medetbekova, and she will tell us not about China actually, but about India arms import policy in the context of the country's Air Force modernization program. But I believe that this modernization program is still related to the growing of Chinese military might and to the Chinese regional strategy.
Yeah, thank you for your introduction, but actually the name of my report was changed. So now I'm going to present a new phase in border tension between China and India. So next, please. Yeah, actually, I pretend to know most of you, and I know that all you're familiar with this conflict. I just want to say that there are like two disputed territories between two countries, and this conflict has been going on for, I suppose, 60 years. Sometimes some clashes and conflicts happen. Yeah, but why I am speaking about a new phase? Next. So in 2020, some like border clash happens. So despite the lack of official explanation of what was happened in this region, media reported about some deaths between death from Indian and from Chinese side. So what was different? Firstly, this clash taking place in various locations in eastern Ladakh. So you can see Ladakh in picture on the right part of this slide, and these all hot places where conflict happened in the picture on the left. Yeah, and secondly, this clash led to the death of personnel. The thing is that it was the first clash resulted in deaths in 45 years. Next. Actually, to prevent this death escalation of this, sorry, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. To prevent such escalation, countries have different agreements. Yeah, you can see three major agreements on which this mechanism is based. However, now measures report on the diplomatic level talks and military negotiations that have taken place have shown that the two sides were unable to agree on military measures to prevent like similar incidents in the future. The prospects for resolving these territorial disputes are becoming more cloudy for four main reasons. So next slide, please. First, China and India cannot remove the central cause of the recent tension in the border areas, which is continued construction of military and dual-use infrastructure in Chinese and Indian-controlled territories. These developments are mainly related to remote areas that previously lacked even roads. On this slide, you can see like three pictures. I marked new Chinese infrastructure by red circles and Indian by orange. Yeah, and in this middle of this slide, you can see like new road, which was built by India to provide easier oh my god, I forget this word. Acceptance. Yes, sorry, to LCA. Yeah. Next slide, please. Second, India and China have recently experienced strategic developments in their nearby neighborhood. So I suppose you know that China started like China-Pakistan Economic Corridor in 2015, and it goes through Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. So I suppose you all know that it's disputed territory between India and Pakistan. Yeah, so, and this initiative, in fact, transformed the Kashmir dispute into a trilateral one, with China being the third stakeholder. Yes, next. Third, after their building infrastructure, these countries are also moving facilities and system of strategic significance to this region. So, for example, you see that India deployed BrahMos cruise missiles in Arunachal Pradesh. And maybe you don't know, but these missiles are like state-of-the-art weapon created by joint venture between India and Russia. Yeah, so it's quite serious weapon. And China reported developments in Tibet that have strategic significance, including missiles drills and deployments. Actually, we don't know exact place where these weapons were deployed, but media says that it's something near to Brahmaputra, and Brahmaputra is the river which crosses Arunachal Pradesh. So China deployed some military infrastructure near this like disputed territory. Next. First, in addition to building up like their capabilities, China and India are also demonstrating more proactive posture of military use. Next slide, please. Yeah, the most visible examples of this change are firstly like Chinese military actions in South China Sea. And India's military strikes against Tajin in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. Yeah, you can see it on this slide. So next, please. Actually, it was information I wanted to present in a nutshell. If you have any question, you're free to ask. Sorry, do you hear me?
Sorry, Ayjan?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Any questions for Ayjan? Okay, then let me please ask you one question. Actually, from your presentation, I've got that the India is really trying to militarize its border with China right now, using the novel military capabilities like BrahMos missiles and so on. What do you look for the future prospects of these regional tensions? For example, will it become the zone like the border between North Korea and South Korea? Like it will be heavily militarized region where there will be clear border lines between China and India with a possible, and the region where there will be great possibilities for military escalations. Yes, or will it will it stay more or less the same as it is now, and these tensions they can be controlled? What's your point here?
It's quite interesting question, especially taking into account like COVID crisis. I suppose that it will be more militarized in future, but countries will try to keep peace as long as possible, because actually I suppose that I'm not sure about Chinese military power, but Indian military power is not enough to to endeavor Chinese. So it's not like really a good variant to India to start the war. And I suppose that more or less, maybe in, I suppose, in 10 years, there will not any like big some big conflicts between two countries. But I suppose that clashes will happen. So yeah, in future too. But if you say about like quite determined line of borders, I suppose now it's impossible, because these two countries, they just how would say, they have agreements which provide all in all, like as far as like peace in this region, and it's appropriate for them not to have like determined line, not to escalate this conflict. Yeah, but it's my opinion, of course. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ayjan, for your presentation. And with this, we are finally finished with the Chinese subsection of our event, and we are coming to the next section, which is called Weapons of Choice. And the first presentation will be by Denis Shevarkov, who will tell us about the relations between Russia and the European Union in the field of energy resources on the example of implementation of the Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2 projects. Denis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I will start. The Nord Stream 2 is a gas pipeline is laid along the bottom of the Baltic Sea from the port village of Ust-Luga, and also you can put the next slide, in Leningrad region, Russia, to the city of Greifswald, Mecklenburg, Vorpommern, Germany. The total length of the route is 1,234 kilometers. So the parties will be from Russia, it's a Gazprom, and from the Europe will be 5 energy companies such as Engie for France, OMV for Austria, Royal Dutch Shell for Netherlands and United Kingdom, Unipa and Wintershall for Germany. All these companies will take part, and taking part right now, in the construction. The next slide, please. All the main problems of this project appear on the sea part of the route. But meanwhile, Nord Stream 2 has a continuation from the German coast to the border with the Czech Republic. This is the main gas pipeline, which is already fully built, and it costed $11 billion. Along with the branch to Berlin, a continuation of this main gas pipeline was laid on the territory of the Czech Republic from the eastern border with Germany to the western border with it. Also from Germany, the gas pipeline goes towards Belgium and France, and to the south towards its hub in Austria. The next slide, please. The project aims to expand gas supplies from Russia to Europe. The reasons for the constructions can be considered mutual economic interests, based on the projected growth in demand for gas in the European market. While Europe's domestic gas production is rapidly declining, another reason is the need to strengthen the European energy security. The signed agreement of mutually beneficial energy cooperation between the European Union and the Russian Federation is also an indicator of mutual economic interest and the need for gas supplies. And finally, the decision to create the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline was based on the successful experience of the construction and operation of the first Nord Stream gas pipeline. We can change the slide. The difficulties of implementing Nord Stream 2 projects are the need to take into account the European energy legislation, which has changed as a result of the introduction of the so-called third energy package, as well as the need to take into account the discriminatory of USA policy aimed at disrupting the project. It should be noted that this policy is directed not only against the interests of Russia, but also against the European supporters of the Nord Stream 2. Since the freezing of the project will lead to serious financial losses due to the fact that only about $60 billion was spent on the construction of all gas pipelines connected to the Nord Stream 2, also the sea part. So the next slide. Speaking about the positions of the supporters, it should be noted that the project involves multi-billion-dollar investments, as I already mentioned, and they are also directed to the European industry and the service sector. More than 200 companies from 17 countries of the world participate in the project. The positions of the opponents of the Nord Stream 2 project, which are represented by Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Romania, Hungary, and Ukraine, and primarily by the United States. All the arguments against Nord Stream 2 tend to refer to the fact that this project is not compatible with the European Union's political project to create an energy union, contradicts energy securities, considering the diversification from Russia imports as an end in itself, or against domestic market policy offering one participant, such as Gazprom, exclusive influence in the energy market, or against the stated environmental goals of moving towards a low carbon economy in Europe. So the next slide, please. And in conclusion, I think I should highlight the main conclusions. So they will be that the project occupies a significant place in the agenda of political and economic relations between Russia and the European Union. The prospects for its implementation look favorable, despite the active actions of its geopolitical opponents. The success of the project is associated with the great economic advantages of the project over alternative options for the European Union. The launch of the Nord Stream 2 can make a serious contribution not only to ensuring the European Union's energy security, but also to easing military tensions between NATO and Russia in the Baltic region, given the need for reliable functioning on the gas supply infrastructure, which excludes military conflict in the region. The official position of German Chancellor Angela Merkel was voiced on July 1st of 2020. In her speech to parliamentaries in the Bundestag, she said that Berlin looks at the Nord Stream 2 from the point of view of its economic benefits and considers it's necessary to complete. According to this argument, the role of politics should again be reduced to ensuring that legal obligations are met. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready to answer on any of your questions.
Thank you, Denis. Any question for Denis on his presentation? I have a small question about the your presentation then. do you think that if we look at the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, we can see a clear differences in approaches to this project from the European Union and from Germany as a sovereign state? And actually it's related to what Donika was speaking in her first report in our session, that the Germany as a state is very much interested in completion of this project because it will greatly benefit economically from Russian gas supplies. But the European Union overall is rather critical of those projects, and there are states like Poland, for example, or like Baltic states, which are actually even doing all they can to undermine this project, yes, and to not to let it get finished. So what do you think, like in future, and it relates to the future of European Union first of all, which approach will become more dominant? Will it be the nationalistic approach of European states like Germany, where they are acting mainly on the basis of their own self-interest, or will it be institutionalized value-based approach of the international organization, which is represented by the European Union as a whole body?
Actually, first of all, I would like to say that all the critics from the European Union, which are opponents of this project, are based on the political aspect. So they're saying that Russia should continue their route, should continue export their gas for the route from Ukraine and Poland, and many other European countries. But actually, if the German or rest of Europe will win, that's a difficult question, because nowadays we will have, if I don't make any mistake, in September or October, we will have the different chancellor of Germany. And probably with the different chancellor, the decision about Nord Stream 2 can also change. But at this point, at the moment we are in right now, I believe that the Nord Stream 2 will be finished and the gas pipeline will start operating in several months, probably, because 95% of the project is already finished.
Okay, thank you, Denise. Any additional questions for Denise?
Yes, I have one question. I've searched networks, also like my research connected with the Nord Stream 2, and I read very interesting point about using Nord Stream by providing hydrogel from Ukraine to the European Union to decrease the amount of oil they use in their everyday life. Maybe in that case, somehow the communication between Russia and European Union will always change. Just a question to Denise and maybe to experts. What do they think about that?
Sorry, may I ask a question on your question?
Well,
to use Nord Stream 2 to export something from Ukraine.
From Ukraine, yes.
Yeah. But that's impossible.
Why?
Because Nord Stream 2 goes through Baltic Sea, and it was built just to exclude the Ukraine from its route. So Ukraine is supposed to have economical relations with Russia, to provide hydrogel through Nord Stream 2.
Well, maybe I made a mistake, sorry, but I just wanted to be sure.
Okay, thank you. And I see that Jolin had one question.
Yeah, well, Dennis more or less pretty much answered my question at the end of his presentation. So, but I'll just to clarify. So, given that 95% of the project has been completed, given the billions that have been invested by Russia and Germany in the project, there is virtually no chance that Nord Stream 2 is not going to come online this year, or at least in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's supposed to start operating in the end of this year.
End of this year?
No, I think it's more of economic part, because gas in Germany costs more in winter. So in the end of the year, this will be the best price for Russians to export the gas. You are muted.
Okay. Thank you, Jorin. If you are talking, please unmute yourself because we can't hear.
Sorry. So, assuming that Angela Merkel is replaced in the elections this autumn, and even if she were to stay on, I mean, there's no political will among the main political parties, as far as I understand, in Germany, to block Nord Stream at this point. It's a done, not just a done deal, it's a done project, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So under those circumstances, how do you perceive the US administration's stance on Nord Stream at this point? Is it just pro forma?
I think it's just a pro forma.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denis. Thank you for your presentation. And I would like to give the floor to Alena Kiseleva, who
thank you for your attention and thank you for your questions.
Alena, I understand you.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry I couldn't just put on the camera because of the bad connection. So let's start now.
We'll be also talking about the Nord Stream, yes, but you will be exploring the different aspects of this project, yes?
Yes, I will speak more about social media and especially internet. Next slide, please. And before I start, I would like to just point one very important thing. We all know that nowadays people, countries all over the world prefer to use soft power, and they are trying somehow to make it useful also through the internet. So we have different types of how it may be useful. First of all, an impact can be direct or indirect, and let's start with direct impact. It's regulated information message transmitted through official communication channels such as briefing, press conferences, publication in print media, and also on internet resources, also official governmental internet resources. And when we're speaking about indirect sources of information, there's such broadcast through a network of funded media and independent accounts and social networks, and instant messages most often position themselves as alternative sources of information. And next slide, please. Yes, thank you. In my research, I try to include not only social network and press releases of official media, but also I included all the media that are available in the EU. That's why, because I wanted to find what was the first, the beginning of the coming of information flow and how it spread all over the internet and what people really think about it. Well, and speaking about representation of the Nord Stream 2 project, it can be emphasized that publication on this topic in official sources are alarming and cautionary. It's compared with the publication of, for example, I'm speaking about German language segment of the internet. Such publication different. They have difference in contrast, and it's obvious. For example, articles that are not dealing with the role of Russia somehow, or they are more often neutral or neutral positive emotional connotations. And if we're talking about how information from official sources is transferred to the media, we can also note that preservation of the alarming tone of the narrative. However, we are also interested in how this affects associations with this topic. Next slide. Since there are no open independent pools of this topic, I tried to create a survey by myself and on the opinion of subscribers under similar posts based on the results. And I came to several conclusions. These conclusions is actually for the official account, for example, on Facebook's and Instagram of the American government. According to them, this topic may seem not relevant to ordinary citizens. However, when we're speaking about another internet sources and maybe some news sites, it's given much to this and discussed outside the official account, and this statement is rather controversial. And another point that government entities have chosen this platform to increase the mass of consumers, and in that case it's not good for them because they would better use another format of presenting the information to the audience. Nevertheless, it's also different platforms have different audience. For example, it's when we compare, for example, Facebook and Twitter, we have absolutely different audience and absolutely different interest of the audience. Nevertheless, we know that Americans are more often fond of Twitter. Nevertheless, European people in mass, as I know, they're not really interested in Twitter as much. That's why it was difficult to find some real information about users. But the tone of the discussion was not so positive to the project. And also the last point, despite a rather large number of negative statements from the media about Nord Stream, I also faced active protection of this project. It was not so much positive information just at all about the project, but there were a lot of topics to discuss on in what way that project should be presented in European Union, in what way it would be necessary for people to live with them in future, and still it's already built. So there are a lot of discussion just about this, and to just the main conclusion is that I don't think that in this case American source and American official source of information are anonymously really affected the main points in people's mind, how they will think about the project. But I guess that itself, it's very controversial inside the European Union. So to find the tales of that story would be really difficult in that way. And I think that just the point of the part that America just took in that story is not really so big as it is by itself. Okay, that's all. And the last slide, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Alona. I would like to ask a small question. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the motivation of Americans' stance in this Nord Stream issue? Is it like pure geoeconomics? Because the United States are interested in supplying their own fuel to Europe, for example, the liquid gas, or there is some sort of ideological or value-based position that, for example, Russia is an authoritarian state which is corrupted, and therefore we should not fund the current Russian government with European money? Or is it the mix of both? What do you think? But if it is, then what do you think is the primary motivation? So is it like geo-economic or political ideology?
I guess you already answered your question. By the way, yeah, I agree that it compares, because of course it's very difficult to somehow find where is more political or more economical way. Of course, America is in their ideology, they are not really interested in Russia with support of European Union, and I guess that's normal when we're speaking about countries and the war they took. But I guess also it's an economical point, because it's not a secret that America wants to sell their oil to Europe. And in that case, that Nord Stream 2 is just like a great problem for them.
Okay, thank you so much. Any more questions for Anastasia?
Alena.
For Alena, sorry. Okay, Alena, thank you so much for your presentation then. And unfortunately, at this moment, I have to leave you to Irina Iosifovna, because I have to go to another meeting. But overall, I see that you are very well prepared. You made a good presentation on several issues. Yes, and I think that we will have a good time for two presentations that are left, and a good time for voting. So please go on, and I'm leaving you to Irina Iosifovna. Thank you.
So may I start maybe? Okay, today I'm going to give a talk about the prospects for the cartel agreement of the natural gas exporting countries, abbreviated as OGEC. So the gas and oil industries are quite interconnected. From an economic point of view, this is manifested primarily in the fact that in the main areas of their use, oil and gas act as substitute goods. Then it's logical to assume that certain processes of the formation of the world's oil market should also manifest themselves during the formation of the world gas market. In this case, it makes sense to analyze the necessity and expediency of creating a gas cartel of gas exporting countries, and to assess possible economic consequences of such a cartel. The next slide, please. It is natural to assume that the path to the creation of a gas cartel should begin with the development of joint activities by the largest gas producers. The first step in this field has already been made by the creation of the gas exporting countries forum with the headquarters in Qatar in May 2001, and it can be considered an important stage in the coordination of gas producers' activities. All the members of this forum you can see on the slide. The prospects for creating a gas cartel based on this forum are primarily due to the fact that the countries participating in it are the largest producers of natural gas in the world. The next slide, please. As we can see from the table, the members of the forum possess over 71% of the world's natural gas reserves, carry out more than 60% of the gas movement through pipelines, and about 53% of the liquefied natural gas. And we can also see that the largest participants in this forum are Algeria, Russia, and Qatar. The next slide, please. So what is the feasibility of creating a gas cartel from an economic point of view? First of all, it will reduce the volatility of gas prices, which will make the activities of all participants in the gas market predictable. Second option is that it will increase the income of the exporting countries, which will increase investment in the natural gas production. Thirdly, it will streamline the process of pricing in the gas market and will create conditions for preventing the use of dumping of separate gas countries. Fourthly, it will provide an opportunity for the countries participating in the forum to more consistently implement their national strategy in the gas sector and will provide them more opportunities to promote their strategies in the international information field. And finally, it will allow a more rational use of an exhaust resource such as natural gas. The next slide, please. Of course, we shouldn't ignore the potential undesirable effects of the emergence of the cartel. First of all, we shouldn't ignore the geopolitical component of this process. Pursuing an anti-Russian policy, the United States will do everything to prevent the creation of the organization of gas exporting countries, and probably Canada and Australia will follow the same policy as they are the largest trade allies. Secondly, the main obstacle nowadays in the process of transforming the forum of gas exporting countries into a gas cartel is the price differences between Russia and Qatar. Thirdly, we should also not forget about the export potential of Iran, which has the largest reserves of traditional gas and can also take leading position among gas exporters and reduce the influence of Russia and Algeria. Fourthly, more countries may enter this market, and the increased level of competition may hinder the creation of such an organization because the balance of power may change. In particular, such countries as Poland, France, Argentina, Brazil, and South Africa may also take an advantage in this sphere. After conducting the analysis, I can conclude that there is no unambiguous assessment of the impacts on the formation of the world gas cartel. But however, I can predict that in the near future, such an organization won't appear. That's all. I'm free to your questions.
Yes, because our moderator has left us. He had tight time limits. That's why we'll probably ask the speaker, yes, and whoever from you, the colleagues and the peers and the speaker to ask questions. Please, Jolene, do you have questions, or you colleagues have questions to the presenter? Does anyone have questions to the presenter? Is there anybody who wants to ask questions to the presenter? Yes, please.
We can go back over go back one page, please.
One slide, please. One slide, please. Back, please. Right, thank you.
These being the arguments against, and you conclude on the basis of these arguments that the establishment of a cartel agreement is unrealistic.
Yes.
Yes.
Under those circumstances, so this whole idea is not going to get off the ground. Is it also, if you go to the earlier slide of those who would join the cartel, it's a rather disparate but somewhat weak group that would form the cartel. Would you agree to that argument?
Go back one
Russia
slide, Lisa.
aside, but if you look at the others.
Lisa, will you go back one slide?
I think you have to go to the first.
Yes.
It's the first or second slide where you show which countries are interested.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yes.
there.
Mm-hmm.
So Algeria, Bolivia, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea, Iran, Libya, All right, Nigeria and Russia and Qatar to some extent.
Yes, but this is...
They are strong. Well, not even Qatar, not even Venezuela, given their instability. I mean, I just don't see, given those members, without others which might be interested but aren't on that list, that this could even take off. It's just they're weak and dysfunctional states to some extent. No disparity to Nigeria, Oman, Qatar, Russia, or Trinidad. But for the rest of them, that's a lot of baggage with only limited value added. So I think there one might have already at the outset cause for disbelief that this could ever take off.
Okay, these are the members of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, which has already been established, and they have already had several sessions, and they have the headquarters in Qatar, as I have already mentioned. But I just, in my presentation, I had an idea to analyze how maybe this forum can be transformed into the gas cartel. As we know, the OPEC cartel in oil market. So I can't say that all of these countries will definitely take part in the future gas cartel, but they nowadays the most potential ones to take position in this cartel.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much. I don't think we have enough time for more questions. Thank you very much, Yelizaveta. And now we can switch to our last speaker. It's Anna Kudryavtseva. Anna, you have the floor, please. And we're very strict with the time limit because the next session is due 17 sharp, 1700, and this is same channel. So you have 5 minutes for your presentations, 3 minutes for questions, and several minutes for voting and follow-up agreements. Okay, you have the floor. Please get started.
It's a pleasure to join you today, first of all. And my topic is the problem of horizontal proliferation of nuclear arms. Next slide, please. So the past century can rightly be determined as nuclear because mankind has moved rapidly from the creation of the atom model to the mastery of the most complex process of nuclear energy extraction for peaceful and military purposes as well. In the 21st century, nuclear weapons are seen primarily not as weapon of war, but as an instrument of political pressure, deterrence, or even intimidation. As such, it's considered a very effective instrument for ensuring national security and, of course, achieving national interest of any country. But, of course, this is why non-nuclear weapon states, under certain security-related circumstances, aspire to possess these weapons. So nuclear deterrence is constantly and invariably linked to nuclear proliferation, often called horizontal proliferation, and increases the degree of tension in international relations as a whole. First of all, it's important to understand that nuclear proliferation only increased the number of participants in an informal nuclear club, making nuclear deterrence a model of military and political relations among different states. So the situation, on the one hand, may lead to a reconsideration of relations between the nuclear weapon states as they cease to perceive each other as enemies, like India or Pakistan and United States of America and Russia. And also the strategic relationship between them may stabilize as the common goal emerges to prevent another state to acquire nuclear weapons. On the other hand, the introduction of the nuclear weapons by an allied state could weaken regional or global competition. For example, like Pakistan's introduction of nuclear weapons has weakened India's military capabilities and has been of some benefit to China as well. Thus, aggravated the situation of nuclear deterrence and destroyed the established system of regional and global security. Next slide, please. According to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, of course, there are 5 main powers, United States, Russia, Britain, France, and China, who officially possess nuclear weapons. The other signatory countries do not, as we know, and however, many developing countries have not joined the signature process, resulting in the formation of 2 more groups of states, the informal nuclear weapon states like India, Pakistan, Israel, North Korea, and the nuclear threshold states that are even more. Accordingly, it's important to understand that for several years, a horizontal spread could encompass a dozen countries that are ready to review and alter their nuclear weapon-free status. For instance, we know that South Africa's nuclear problem has conducted the full cycle that is necessary for the development of nuclear weapons. And in 1988, the country officially declared a military nuclear problem. So several years later, as the history respects, South Africa had exceeded the NPT and currently did not possess nuclear weapons, but had the industrial and technological base for their establishment. For example, another country, Argentina, had achieved a level of technology in the 1980s that allowed to manufacture of nuclear weapons to take place within a few years. And in 1995, Buenos Aires acceded also to this treatment to date. And Argentina has a peaceful nuclear problem that counts with a 3 powers reaction, 6 research reactors, and 1 uranium enrichment plant. In addition, the state and non-state actors, including terrorist organizations that seek to possess nuclear materials and radioactive substances that could be used to carry out any terrorist attack, may be involved with the use of the so-called dirty bombs. Next slide, please. Undoubtedly, the activities of the International Atomic Energy Agency was aimed to maintain a balance between the interests of nuclear weapon states and those of non-nuclear weapon states, an important element in preventing the horizontal proliferations of nuclear weapons. 2 other organizations, the Nuclear Suppliers Group and the Zengo Committee, play a significant role in controlling the transfer and nuclear material, technology, and equipment as well. So based on the high profile or activity of the above-mentioned organizations, it can be concluded that the most logical and effective instrument for dealing with the undesirable and uncontrolled proliferation of nuclear weapons will be the integration of existing organizations as well as their empowerment through the development of new decision-making mechanisms and measures to prevent non-compliance with the fundamental obligations for all countries. Next slide, please. So equivalent level of significance as well has the idea of resuming negotiations of the Treaty of the Prohibition of the Nuclear Weapons, which was signed by 86 countries and entered into force January this year. An important detail is also the suggestion that the intensification of the negotiation process will allow to inclusion of the other stakeholders in this dialogue to prohibit the nuclear weapons proliferation, which is an important step towards the cooperation of the major powers in the combating contemporary threats. So it's also a fundamental objective to recognize that the global modernizing, modernizing system for controlling the proliferation of nuclear weapons has to be prioritized as an urgent one. And the constant changes in international relations, the progressivity of military technology, and the new strategic thinking do not imply a pointless system of verification, but make it quite clear that the system is an important element in the peaceful coexistence of our civilization as present and in the future as well. Thank you for your attention. I tried to be as fast as I could.
As fast. Thank you very much. Any questions? Because we are really pressed for time, but there is I think there is a minute for one question. Compressed session, yeah. If not, then...
It's okay. Nobody has questions.
It was exhaustive.
Thank you.
Was it exhausting? But you know, science is exhausting. You know.
I mean, just the report, the presentation from beginning to end was logical, well structured, and very clear.
Okay, thank you, Antonio. 15-second questions, which is torturing me, the answer. Is it a real oceanic tide in the background behind you? Can't believe it. Where is it? Is it a real ocean?
No,
okay.
I can share one with you.
Okay, thank you. We would prefer the real waves, you know, tangible. Okay, thank you very much. Now, thank you very, very much, all of you and all presenters. And now the time came to vote for 2 best speakers from this session. Remember, we did. So you go into the chat and you will find out either a link or a QR code, what is more convenient for you. Please quickly follow it and rank your...
It's not activated.
It is.
I don't know.
It is.
Mine isn't.
Lisa, is it activated?
I have.
So give me a sec.
On the link, not close.
Link and below is the QR code. Glow.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
yes.
Neither one, no the other.
Just a sec.
So give me a sec, please.
It's a digital world.
No, it is okay. It is okay.
Probably something wrong with mine.
Okay, who can do it now. Follow the QR code or the link. Select, so rank the speakers, and we'll come up with a surprise and announce the prize for the best speakers of this session. You were all perfect today. It was a really difficult one because the scope of the issues covered and unbelievably wide. We all worked for that. Okay, Lisa, what about the results? Are the results ready?
So, okay, give me, stop, guys, stop voting. Colleagues, stop voting in this moment. So I can download the results. We prefer staying with you till whatever, but we are pressed by the session, which will occupy this same channel. The next one, okay? Yes. So here we go. So the first place goes to Danica Yatova. So congratulations, Danica. Well done. It was a pleasure to listen to your presentation.
It was a pleasure to participate in that conference. Thank you so much to everyone.
Lisa.
No worries. And the second one goes to Voropaeva Anastasia. So Anastasia, congratulations.
Thank you.
So no worries. So there are two speakers that will have a prize. So
let me announce it.
Okay. So and also on the behalf of the organizing committee, I want to inform you that from the first part of the best speakers, we also give the prize to Elizaveta Yanzina and to Ocha Sanali. So congratulations.
And that is more complicated than that. So we initially wanted to have one person from the first portion and two persons from the second session, but because you all were so good, it was difficult. The choice was very difficult. That's why 3 people are getting the certificates with honors from the first part. It's Hudenka, Yanzina, and Sanali Ochha, and from the second session, you know who. But what will happen now? Jolian, our perfect expert, because the prize, unexpected, unprecedented, unique prize is having a motivation mentor sessions with Jolyon, individual, on the individual basis, so 30 minutes. And it is his right to choose from these 5 people, through answering motivating questions, to choose 3 only. Jolyon, you have the floor.
Okay, well, thank you. Irina, it's been fascinating. I will have to look at the list and review things before. I can't tell you off the top of my head. It would be like picking names out of a hat. So I will look at those who have won and inform you.
What will you do, say?
I will look at those who have the finalists, and I will...
Yes. You will do it later and get in touch with us.
Yeah, I can't do this at this point.
Yes, ad hoc. Yes, very pressing. So, but we congratulate those 5 people.
Yeah.
They were really the best. And Jolyon will come back to us.
Right.
Either directly, you are all in the group, or through me or through organizing committee, right. And we'll inform you about his decision and the time slots he will be, kindly provide you for these sessions. Thank you all so much. Now we have to shut down because the next session has to start. Thank you all. It was a wonderful experience for you. Believe me, you will remember this day for the rest of your life.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. So it was a great pleasure.
Thank you very much
to collaborate with you. So have a nice day. Have a nice evening.